A Harry Problem by Blue Bastard. Chapter 13. Closing in. Everything seemed fine and dandy at the Ponyville train station. The newly arrived train bell steamed as the conductor announced it was safe to disembark the passenger coaches. And the passengers did, waiting for their luggage to be offloaded for collection so they could go on their business. The mail was offloaded as new sacks were loaded in. It was simply hustling and bustling, no matter where one looked. For one individual, this is exactly what he wanted, having slipped into the station the previous night. He spent at least a couple of hours holed up in a locked stall in the stallion's restroom in a rather uncomfortable position so the janitor wouldn't see his legs on the floor. As it would turn out, there had been no janitor, which annoyed the intruder as he really did want to get into a more comfortable position, but dared not risk it in case somebody else came in. Finally, the time had arrived when he had heard the early morning crowd outside, when he could get out of the blasted company of his porcelain companion. No pony on the platform noticed the stallion, who exited the restroom and blended right into the crowd. To everybody else, he had just been some pony fresh off the train, and he really needed to go. But he was not a newly arrived passenger, despite him choosing to stay as such for his cover. He had no luggage to pick up, and only his worldly possessions stowed in the satchel were those he wore aside from one, which was hidden in plain sight. Not like any pony would notice. They'd be too busy noticing what kind of pony he was. His coat was a pale cream color, contrasting his mane of blended dark brown and olive green coloration, but not in a bad way. On his flank was a scroll, half open with a feather quill writing scribbles on it. To all the world around him, he looked the part of a scholar who hailed from the Crystal Empire. He did not appear to be crystallized, as his kind were known for, but he had an excuse for that, and the effect only showed when within range of the crystal heart. Ignoring the stares from the passer-by ponies, the transplanted pony headed straight for what looked like a hotel of sorts. He didn't actually need a room to stay in, due to previous arrangements, but the hotel was closer to his objective. It would be much more comfortable than his other arrangement, and the no questions asked demeanor of most of the room renters process would just ensure privacy. His confidence in that belief was shaken somewhat when he entered the hotel and immediately was met with a raised eyebrow from the older pony managing the desk, probably the innkeeper.
"Well, there,"
said the innkeeper, visually examining the satchel wearing oddly before him.
"you certainly don't look like any pony I've ever seen before. Where are you from?"
I am a native of the Crystal Empire, my good sir, responded the younger pony, approaching the desk.
"Ah! So you're one of them crystal ponies, aren't you?"
I am. Although please don't ask me to translucent. We crystal ponies can't do that trick outside the Empire.
Probably to do with that crystal or whatever it is that makes that weird roar, I'll bet. Anyway, I bet you're here for a room.
Indeed. Although, if possible, I prefer a room with a closing window looking out into that forest. The Everfree, I believe it called?
Why'd you want to do that?
The innkeeper inquired, as he began looking for a room meeting the requirement.
It's nothing much to look at. Just a bunch of tightly packed trees.
Up in the Empire, we don't have dense forests, and I find it something interesting to gaze upon.
Wherever your folks are put, I guess.
The innkeeper then placed the key with the number 2 etched on it.
Room 2 should fit your needs. I do require a deposit of 5 bits, before I can check you in.
Not a problem, answered the pale cream pony as he fisted around in his satchel and produced 3-bit coins, placing them on the table. The innkeeper took the deposit.
All right, now, I need you to sign in here.
The innkeeper then produced a rather large and ragged guest book, which he opened to a page toward the back where the other pony could sign in. The crystal pony couldn't help but overlook the names of some of the ponies who signed in before him. Wildfire, Dainty Disc, Twilight Sunburn, Sandalwood. It never ceases to amaze me how strange some ponies' names can be, thought the checking-in pony, as he signed his name below Sandalwood's. Taking the book back, the innkeeper examined the signature to ensure it was good.
Yeah. So your name is Intellectual Pursuit, huh? Interesting. It's no business of mine, but I have to wonder what some pony with a name like that is doing in a backwater town like Ponyville.
Pursuit just smiled. There's much to be learned in a new place. No matter where one goes, it's often the case where the least likely of locations will yield the greatest treasures. Behind that smile was a grinning predator. one who already knew the treasure he wanted was there, soon to be his. "I never thought I'd be so glad for a school night in my life!" declared Applejack to her friends. She invited them over to try out a new pie she created. The caramel apple pie, she called it. She also invited them over simply so it didn't look like she'd become something of a shut-in after the whole incident with the dogs, or that Lyra and Sandalwood were taking their places as her greatest friends.
"I do apologize, Applejack. I was supposed to be watching Sweetie Belle over the weekend, but I was so caught up in her work order that it seemed like a relief my sister was going somewhere else. I didn't realize it would cause you much trouble."
Don't worry about it, Rarity. This whole weekend was like some kind of annoyance after another. Indeed, starting with the whole incident involving the dogs and their hormones, she had to wear her mother's favorite perfume and be reminded of some bad memories. Then she screwed up her attempt at a run night in wolf form and nearly got caught by the CMC. Then, after managing to put Granny into defense so it looked like a timber wolf or two had tried to raid the farm, she ended up dangerously close to the one individual in the world who was hunting the very thing she become. And then, the previous night, no timber wolves showed up, and in the end, all that happened was the CMC and Iron Will shouting various assertive slogans all night. Apparently, Werewolves had also improved hearing, as Applejack learned the hard way as she barely got any sleep, the shouting ringing in her head as if it was coming from a megaphone 5 inches away from her face.
"It's possible the wolves just got scared off by all the shouting,"
suggested Fluttershy, who somehow managed to fall asleep in the middle of all the shouting, to the surprise of every pony, including herself.
"Or maybe they thought you constructed something that when you pull the lever in a room full of identical levels, there'll be a tidal wave of lava that spewed from the ground and flooded the entire landscape since it just to kill them,"
said Pinkie Pie.
"Or maybe they're just like some elephants. I don't remember."
"Pinkie, what does Applejack look like? A dwarf?" asked Twilight. "The physical impossibilities of that aside, why would any pony build such a thing in the first place? It sounds like something that would destroy an entire town."
"To destroy an unending army of angry pachyderms, of course,"
Pinkie Pie stated, as if that was the most logical thing in the world. The 6 friends just sat there, looking at Pinkie Pie with various faces of confusion. Finally, Applejack broke the silence by saying they should all try the caramel apple pie, still unmolested in the center of the table. Every pony agreed. As Applejack had hoped, the pie was delicious. All the taste of a caramel pie, but condensed into the buttery crust of a pie. The rest of her friends agreed the confection was a success, and that other ponies would love it as well. But when Applejack got up to bust the table, Rainbow Dash noticed something odd about her athletic rival.
"Hey, AJ, is it just me, or is there something wrong with your cutie mark?"
"Huh?" responded AJ, turning to look at her bum mark. To a pony, the cutie mark is a very visible declaration of their identity as a pony. It was the mark of their talent, of what made them especially unique among their peers. If something permanent happened to one's cutie mark, there was no telling the kind of psychological breakdown it would occur. See Little Pip. But to her credit, Applejack only showed a little bit of reaction when she saw what happened to her cutie mark. Generally, nothing had actually happened, but it was still 3 bright red apples, with 2 green leaves apiece. However, what was noticeable to her about the mark is that it appeared to have slightly faded, as if it was an old painted sign bleached by the sun. Applejack didn't know what to make of this. As once attained, ponies wore their marks for life. Even trying to shave off fur wouldn't remove the mark, as it would just reappear when the fur grew back. Marks weren't also supposed to fade. Granny Smith's pie cutie mark was still as bright as day, even though she was older than Ponyville itself.
"Oh my!"
declared Twilight, as he got up from her seat and tried over to examine AJ's mark.
"I've never heard of a cutie mark fading. I mean, your mark is still very clear, Applejack, but it's certainly not as bright as it usually is."
"I hope this isn't part of the whole werewolf business," thought the apple farmer, as he tried to think of what caused her mark to fade.
"Why don't you just look up the cause in the library?" asked Rainbow Dash. "Or failing that, just ask the princess. Celestia is a zillion times older than us. Surely she's probably heard this before." "I guess that's the only way to address this,"
agreed the Lavender Unicorn.
"Syndrome, fever, eternal organ failure. It could be anything."
"I'm pretty sure it isn't that big of a deal, girls," said Applejack, trying to divert attention away from the fact she was pretty concerned herself.
Maybe I just need to wash my flank and it'll come back. I've been working pretty hard today. If you're sure, AJ, we'll leave it to you to wash up. However, if it does remain like this, or get worse, or fades more, you should probably go to the doctor. Applejack nodded, and so the six friends went back to chatting about the various topics of no real consequences. At the back of her mind, however, AJ couldn't shake the feeling her cutie mark actually undergoing a physical altercation couldn't bode anything good for her in the near future. It was around dinner time at Castle Canterlot, when Princesses Celestia and Luna were enjoying a nice, even-course meal between the two of them, that the letter came. "Another friendship report, sister," asked Luna, before taking a bite of alfalfa. "Doesn't look like it," replied Celestia. "It's from Twilight Sparkle, but it's asking a rather peculiar question. Can a pony's cutie mark fade? Oh dear, has he gone something completely unnatural and magic again, like the time you had to personally intervene? I hope not. Twilight would know I expect better of her. No, what's going on here is he probably doing some side research on how cutie marks came about. With those stray fillies the cutie mark crusaders having nagged her enough to look into it. You know, I wonder why no pony has ever looked into that, whether or not a pony's cutie mark could fade. Why, Luna, so you can reduce the size of your cutie mark so it doesn't look like a miasma covering your plot?" said Celestia, smirking. Luna's brow furrowed as battle lines being drawn. "Well, at least my cutie mark is proportionally bigger than yours. I see no need to try to remove it. Besides, I would expect ponies to behave better than to stare at my booty. It is only that way because you're the younger sister and still smaller than me. I'd rather have that than a giant cake-inflated rear that could collide with some poor pony if I was backing up. Are you saying my butt is fat? Only if you're saying my cutie mark looks like some kind of horrible disease." This exchange of semi-hostility went on for several minutes, the duo having left their places at the table and moved to the side, ready to engage in a battle closer to just wits. "I do believe there is only one way to settle this, Luna. At least we can agree on something, Celestia." Silence for a few moments. Then Luna charged her sister. Unfortunately, the moment she did so, she knew she had lost, as Celestia merely teleported away. Sliding to a halt, Luna was trying to figure out where Sally could have gone, when the Sun Princess' voice whispered behind her ear. "Gotcha." Luna was powerless to stop Celestia's assault. Her defenses breached, and the attack too powerful to resist. Steady, please. Even after all these years, Luna, I still know your ticklish spots. Please surrender. Please surrender. Celestia ceased with the tickling and helped her sister up. The war of the tickles had been something the sisters had done, since they had come to the conclusion any real fighting between them would end up destroying something on a massive scale. That had proved true 1,000 years ago, when Celestia had to fight Nightmare Moon. The end result was that the outright destruction of Castle Everfree, leaving it largely in the ruined state that it remained to the present day. I apologize for insulting your cutie mark, Luna. And I apologize for calling your pot fat. The two royals hugged in a rare display of sisterly love, one not bound by the rules and regulations of monarchy. That moment was quickly ruined, however, when one of the royal staffers cleared his throat to get his liege's attention.
Your Majesties, how you doing with supper?
No need fix. Luna and I are still eating. We just got caught up in a sister moment.
Very well then. Please continue to enjoy your supper.
Twilight was frantically looking all through the books on pony health care and the like. Books flying every which way, but in such a fashion that they landed perfectly and were not damaged. Even in a crisis, Twilight Sparkle was not one to try to damage perfectly good books if she could help it. "Spike, have you found anything yet?" "No, can't say I have. Hold on!" replied the young dragon, hefting a large book with a section he thought ruffling on the current page. "Oh, wait, sorry, false alarm. This is about what happens if your mane and tail start turning right." There has to be something in here about cutie marks failing. Certainly a higher probability of that being something ponies know more than about dragons. It was around that time there was a knock on the library door. Twilight emerged from the giant pile of books, saying, "I wonder who that could be this late at night. Applejack, maybe? Spike, can you—" Yeah, I got it." Spike reached up for the door. opening it to find a pale cream pony with a strange mane coloration waiting outside.
The strange pony spoke up.
Ah, is this the Golden Oaks library? It is. Can I help you with something? Said Spike flatly. He had not been in a good mood. Little of having to do library-wide research for something again. I am looking for Miss Twilight Sparkle. Is she in at the moment? She might be in. Is your business with her of extreme importance? Well, no, but I... SLAM! The rudely rejected pony fought the urge to unleash his true power and utterly destroyed the unbending door. Before he got a chance to do so, it opened again. This time, a purple unicorn with a two-tone pink purple streak in her mane appeared behind it. I apologize for Spike. He's a bit worked up due to me being kind of hard on for a research project I'm working on.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but I was wondering if I could chat with you, scholar to scholar. I mean, I'm presuming you're the one and only Twilight Sparkle, protege of Princess Celestia herself, am I right?
Twilight couldn't help but blush a little at how well this other pony knew her. Yes, I am Twilight Sparkle, and you are?
The stallion stuck out his hoof. Intellectual pursuit. I'm friend of Crystal Empire, but I've come down to Ponyville to see what I can learn of the frozen north, outside of the frozen north.
You're a crystal pony?
Indeed, Whoa!
Pursuit found himself drawn into the library by Twilight's telekinesis, being put down at a table in a room just outside the library. Spike, can you make some tea for our guest here? Yeah, sure, whatever. Twilight did hurriedly set up a table before sitting down herself. So, Mr. Pursuit, what do you want to know about Equestria proper? I'm sure you still have lots of questions since the Crystal Empire has been out of the loop of history for the past dozens of years. And then you can tell me about what the Empire was like before Somber got all screwed up.
Indeed, I do have a lot of questions, and I will try to answer yours to the best of my ability. But first I must ask what the deal is about all these medical texts thrown about.
Intellectual gestured to the pile of books clearly visible outside the kitchen. Oh, those, well, I've been trying to figure out what's wrong with one of my friends. She's got this strange thing going on, and none of the books seem to detail what it is.
Pursuit cocked his head to one side. Oh, I happen to know some details about obscure medical conditions. Perhaps I could be of assistance?
I'd rather not have to explain it, but since none of the books seem to have any information. Have you ever heard of a pony that's had their key marks start fading? Like an old painted sign left in the sun too long?
The crystal pony cocked an eyebrow, showing some sign of recognition beyond of the description. Why, yes, I have. How long has your friend had this problem?
Twilight reached behind to scratch the back of her neck. I don't actually know. I only learned of it today when she had me and the rest of our friends over to try her new pie recipe.
I do like pie, thought Pursuit, thinking of the treat he had partaken in so long. But I have to keep my eyes on the prize here. There will be plenty of time for pie later. Okay, I think I know what your friend has. It's something called kitty mark manes.
I've never heard of that before.
Sure you have. It's actually something close to dandruff. It's extremely rare, probably genetic, but research can't track down enough cases to study it. Regardless, what is known about it is that a pony sheds their fur coat, the kitty mark doesn't grow back as fast as the fur. Thus, it looks like it's fading. In reality, it will be restored to full clarity in a day or two later as the mark grows back. Nothing major at all.
Fascinating, declared Twilight, who had somehow produced parts of it and was jotting down notes with her quill. Applejack will be happy to hear that.
Applejack?
Oh yeah, she's a friend of mine who apparently has kitty mark manes going on. It should be a relief to her to learn that it's not another hapless event she ended up in. What with the dog chasing and the whole deal with the Miri.
Interesting. So her name is Applejack.
Thought Pursuit, as Twilight went on a long list of things Applejack had to deal with the past few months. It amused him to no end that while he could see the truth as clear as day, the supposed student of the princess was completely blind to it. That would be fixed in due time, of course, he thought. But like with pie, dealing with her can wait. Okay, now that you've answered one of my questions fully, it's your turn to ask.
Seriously, anything you want to know about the Crystal Empire, just ask away. He swore Twilight's mouth made a squeak noise as he whipped out different parts of his sheet, this one being long. Very, very long.
I may have one or two questions, Twilight said nonchalantly, but this shouldn't take very long at all. You shouldn't take very long at all,
whined the Pursuit as he sailed off back to the hotel. He was in a seriously bad mood, having completely misjudged the favorite student Celestia. The one or two questions had taken several hours to answer. While he in turn had learned enough about what happened to Equestria in the 1,000 years he had been gone. Yeah, like he had been stupid enough to still be in the Empire when it went bye-bye with Sombra's first defeat. He had to admit himself that this was a low point for him, as he learned nothing that could make his objectives be achievable more easily, nearly because he had actually known all that crap to begin with. In fact, his secondary goal was becoming less attractive instead. But the driving reason for that one went beyond the purple unicorn mare who couldn't shut the hay up. But his mood began to improve once he was safely behind the door to room 02. Almost instantly came off the satchel, care being taken not to damage the items inside of it. Then came the locket. The precious locket she had gotten enchanted with the disguise spell for him so many years ago. As the spell deactivated, returning him to his true form, he tried not to let a tear fall for his beloved. He reached over with a morphing hoof to retrieve the old photo from the satchel. He only felt reminded of his dearly departed, the one who stayed with him so willingly, before that bitch Celestia took her away in some demented act of justice that was wholly uncalled for. His rage building, he worked it back under control before taking note that he was back to his normal form, his true form. He walked over to the mirror to examine himself. Gone was the pretentious crystal pony known as Intellectual Pursuit, for that was merely a cheap disguise afforded by the locket. But here stood the true beast from within, his coat a thick layer of brown fur, mane and tail a messy two-toned tangle of dark greens, and eyes a piercing yellow. On his flank there was no stupid scroll, quill suggesting intelligence, or some crap like that. But from a distance it appeared he had no key mark at all. Only close examination will reveal the remains of what could be only a red-colored wolf paw, the mark of a true hunter. In the mirror, the pony cracked a menacing grin of sharp teeth. He was finally back in play, back on the hunt. It was only a matter of time before the prey was all his.